Hello. Yes, so I was going to talk about revamping the media section, so making the dream a reality. So what is the dream? Well, in 2009 in Codegarden, Jeffrey Shoemaker did a talk about his dreams for Umbraco. One of those dreams was a better media section. And this kind of aligned with what thoughts I've been having. In that same year, I did a talk on integrating AI with the media section. And so I was kind of like, I really wanted to give that a go, but it turned out you couldn't replace core stuff. But I'm thinking now, since V14, it should be possible to make those dreams come true. So let's have a look. But first of all, let's address the problem. What do I think is wrong with the media section? So, looking at the current media section, this is a sample site. I was like looking at the media tree and I was thinking, well, the media tree makes real sense for content. Content is organized in a hierarchical structure. It's like usually often matches the structure of your website. It's kind of like, but for media, does it make sense? Like, if you've got 3 different editors, and one of them is the type of person that has 15,000 unread emails, and you've got one person that organizes all their stuff into folders, those 2 people are using the same media tree, and like quite often you end up with like 1,000 images in the root of media. And you can't do stuff like drag and drop. I want to just move that folder into that folder or that image up there. And it got me thinking, like, is that the optimum way to find media that you're after? And then you start looking at search. And if you search in that top, it's just searching the folder you're in. It's not searching the whole tree. So if you're on the root, you just search in that, and it's like, just here's the images in that folder. And then when you look at media, like, you've just got a name on a file, and if someone's uploaded to their camera, it's like DCIM_ random number. And it's like, that's not much use to search. And it would be ever nice to have an option where you could sort of just enter a term, pick some extra text out of those images, or whatever, like tags them somehow, and then like you could just search, and you could keep going as well, do a recursive search if you wanted. And the other thing that you look at and you think this is crazy is like sorting. So, like sorting, media, content again, these are more meaningful. But if you're in media, sometimes you're looking at all sorts. So like in here, I've got 3 items, kind of makes sense. But when you've got 300, like, what do you do here? And it doesn't show thumbnails and images. Is that the most friendly way to sort? And I've got a bit of an illustration of what this actually looks like. So this is sorting 70 items. Oh, who's the UI? So I'm going to try and bring this one up here. And they're all called like 1 to 70 JPEG. Not really meaningful. And I'm losing it, and I can't drag it up. And there's a magic spot up here. Somewhere you get to it, and it will go. And even when I've done that, it doesn't change the order in the media section anyway. It does in the tree, I figured out, but it doesn't in this media section. Is ordered by something you only see when you're on table view. And I'm like, I tried to go back and forth and see, maybe I just need to reload it. But anyway. So maybe that's not ideal either. And then I started thinking, what about the media picker? The media picker is probably, if you've got into the media section, usually something's gone wrong. Like, who's actually in the media section? I've never seen an editor go and create a folder and upload all their images ready for their blog post they're going to write. They kind of tend to try to do it on the fly. So the media picker is almost more important. And the media picker has this upload button. And the first thing everyone does, whenever I've seen anyone edit content, they go in, they've got a load of images to upload to this blog post, they click that upload button, they upload a bunch of images, boom, they're all in the root. Straight away, I'm like, can we not make them upload it to a folder, or like make it a bit more that you have to do something first to get to there. Does even every image need to end up in the media library? How many images do we think, like on a website, I'd say 70% of them are used on one piece of content and never touched again. Do we have to have the media library full of images that you're not going to ever use again? And then we start looking at subfolders. And these subfolders, I've got no clue if they've got anything in them. There's no like hint that they've got subfolders. There's no hint they've got images in them. So again, you just come into here and it's like, it's not the most helpful. I also think it looks a bit weird with just the little icon in the middle. And so I kind of rated it 3.6. Not great, not terrible. I didn't want to pick a number to scale it against. But 3.6, this is a Chernobyl reference. It's very niche. And the fundamental issue comes down to media is not the same as content. And I think that's where all the problems have come from. Since Umbraco 2, as long as I've been using it, 3 or 4, media and content have had the same UI, and we re-borrow those UI. And so the difference, like content exists in the structure of a site. Usually it's somewhere, it makes sense, it has to go somewhere, and actually you can then find that content easy because you're looking at it on the website and you go, oh, I go to this one, and I can find it. And content has lots of textual and meta information. It's got, you're basically adding loads of text to a piece of content. While media is always attached, almost always attached to an image, file, it might be a URL for YouTube or something, but it has some other purpose. It's like attaching to another thing you want to use on the website. And media technically has very little content. Now you can extend it out of the box. It's got nothing, no alt tags, no video descriptions, no nothing. So like it shouldn't be treated the same in my mind. And so in that case, why is the UI almost identical? And that's just a legacy issue, I think. And what would a dream media section, a media picker look like? So if you could come up with anything, what would you go for? So I've started thinking about the media picker. And the first thing I start with is, what are editors trying to do when they use a media picker? So the first thing they're always trying to do is upload new media. And that is probably 90% of the usage of a media picker is trying to get new media onto the website. Second, they're probably trying to accept existing media or crops or something from the media library. And then there's a potential third, which they might be wanting to get like something from a dam or something. Could we extend it for that? But I won't go into that for this one. So if you're uploading a new media item, some images you'll want to reuse, some images you want to put in the library, they make sense. Some images, you think this is like a picture of us eating on a company away day. Are we going to use that again? Probably not. And so do we need to put it in the media library? So I started thinking about, let's just sketch out, before I get going in any code, let's sketch out what a media picker might look like. And the first thing I've done is put tabs at the top and said, are you uploading a new image or selecting an existing image? And so that way you've got your two kind of key routes. And this is my sort of proposal for how we might look at it. And then once you're uploading a new image, you've got an option to say, actually, I want to reuse that, so save it in the media library for reuse. And in which case, it shows you a media tree and asks you where to put it. And it won't let you put it in the root. So you've got to go pick, and then you can add new folders and do stuff. But this way, you're never going to have that thing where you come into the client's library that you've left. Beautiful website, you left them. You come back to it 3 months later, and now it's just like someone's trashed it. And then the next one, selecting existing items. So I've based this very much on the current UI, but I'm just making it a little information rich. So I've sort of select existing, you've got the same search, and it's worth noting the media picker search actually does search subfolders. But then I've also started putting thumbnails and little folders and give you little hints what's in there. So I thought that would be quite a nice way of sort of rendering that, giving you a little more context, a little more insight into where you want to look. There you go. So, and what are editors, let's go back to the media section now. So what are editors trying to do when they're using the media section? And I was saying that usually, if I'm in the media section, I'm usually like trying to reorganize it because someone's messed it up. Or I've put everything in the root by mistake or something. But they're trying to find existing media item to change it or update it or replace it or delete it. And they're trying to upload some media for general use. So maybe you have a stock photos you want to put on and like share for everyone to use on the website. And they might be trying to reorganize media, like fix problems they've had with media or like group stuff back together. So the media section 2.0 might look something more like this. And in this one, I've sort of added tabs to the left-hand side. If you're not going to make it so that media doesn't have to go in the media library, you want some way to finding that. So maybe you could have a find by content tab, and in which case it shows you the content tree, and you find a piece of content, it shows you the media that's attached to that piece of content. Maybe we have filtering and faceting. Now, at the minute, we probably don't have a huge amount to go on, but you have like data added. You could start pulling in the meta information from photos and things. You could start by type, but we could make that extensible. And so if you have like alt tags on stuff, maybe, or you have images, like date taken, where it was taken, all that sort of coordinates might be on the photos you're uploading. We could start pulling that into here. And the final thing I was going to do is the same thing I'll do on the media picker, give you a little more insight into what's happening in these folders. And I also thought maybe the homepage of the media section could be recently added or recently used, or maybe ones you've recently added or ones you've recently used. So if you're coming in here because you've just added a load of images to something and you want to move where they are, the first thing you might want to come in is here's all the ones you've just added 10 minutes ago. And so then I started thinking, is it possible to do this? Now, back in 2019, it definitely wasn't possible. I tried, and in my talk, what I ended up doing is hiding the media section and putting my own in. But then you had to do stuff like the media pickers. If you wanted to use a media picker, you had to create a different data type and create a media picker sort of for that data type and then swap all the existing media pickers over to use your data type. And it was a bit of a mess. And it was never properly built in. Media still had to be there, still had to exist. Now, since Umbraco v14, they've added extension points that, in theory, will let you replace core sections of the back office. Everything is replaceable now. So I thought, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a go at this. And I'm going to give you some caveats. So I'm completely new to v14. I've not worked on it before. I actually haven't done much, or barely any TypeScript, never touched lit. And so my theory was I'm going to try and do this, and I'll tell you what was good, what was bad, what's hard, what's easy. And hopefully by the end of this, I will have a nice working media thing, proof of concept I can show you. And you can all be like, well, Steve, that's amazing. He did that in a week. Now, might not have been that successful, spoiler alert. I wanted to be the demonstration more of learning how to do it, how I go about as a sort of fairly experienced developer working on Umbraco for a long time, how you go about it, and maybe that would smooth the learning curve because it is quite steep for other developers to sort of come on board and start developing their own extensions. So my approach is I plan to spend 5 full days, blocked out 5 working days, and I would just see how far I could get in those 5 working days. Whatever I manage to build at the end of those days is what I'm going to show today. So the first step for anyone is the setup. And for this, I had to read the sort of getting started docs for Bellissimo on the Umbraco site. I was reading the Umbraco docs. I read a bit about lit. I set up my development environment following the docs, and that was all reasonably successful. And I always had 4 tabs open. The Umbraco documentation, the UI documentation for Umbraco, the Umbraco source code, which I was hoping not to have open, but it's kind of really ended up that was the way you found out to do a lot of stuff. And I had a little Umbraco site running my code. So I'd run npm watch or run watch, and it was making every change, pop on there, and it was quite a nice way of working. I was like, that was a good start. And then the first thing I wanted to do, I was going to try and replace the media picker. So the first thing I was going to do is create an empty modal. So keeping it simple, I didn't want to go mad. I didn't want the first one. I didn't want to make this really complicated thing and then realize that was just broken. I wanted to just prove that you can replace that media picker modal. And the only UI I was going to put into it was just some tabs so you could sort of see something. It wasn't just a blank screen. So you have this is what a lit element looks like for adding a modal, and I just wanted to put my little media picker replacement modal in. And then I thought, I'll add some tabs. And I've come from the Angular, kind of doing quite a lot of Angular stuff. So I was like, how do tabs even work? And I went to the Find them in the UI documentation, and they've got this little thing here. And it's like, oh, you just create a tab group. And I was like, where's the model? How do I inject a model or put a model into it? How do I, where's its scope and all this kind of Angular bump? And I think, coming from the Angular background, this didn't work at all as I expected because it's much more bare bones. These are literally will render like tabs, but there's no connection to bind these up to other things. And so my first sort of real learning from this is the UI is very bare bones. It's just focused on look and feel rather than function. There are 2 APIs around, which was really confusing to me, and one of them worked, and one of them, the tabs weren't showing it. So there's one called API docs, and there's one called uui.umbraco.com. And the API docs, it turns out, a little bit of chat with people. API docs is very much like you want to find a particular version, but it uses an older version of Storybook that doesn't render everything. And the latest one, this is just purely latest, the UUI one. So that was a little bit confusing. Spend an hour trying to figure out why the tabs are all, no matter what option, were all the same. And for most of this, I end up now looking at the Umbraco source code and seeing where are they using tabs and how do they connect it up. So once you get that, I started rendering my little, can anyone see that? There's a TV at the back in there. I started rendering my modal. And then I've got this little render body. So I robbed a bit out of this, that existing one. Render body, and I've got my tabs. And then I'm doing what feels to me like proper old school. I am doing, when you click on the tab, I'm setting like a magic string for, I'm sure I could do it with a constant, but I'm setting a magic string to say which tab's loaded. And then it'll go through here, and it's running 2 different tabs. And at the minute, there's nothing in there, but I was just like, this is how I'm doing it, and this will set it to active. Now, there's probably people in the room that say, oh, Steve, there's a better way of doing this, but this is the way I figured out to doing it, to get it something up and running. At that point, I was thinking, okay, I've got a little modal. Now I want to swap it in place of the existing media picker modal. So when you click that media picker upload button or select button, it's going to use my one, not the Umbraco one. And in theory, I'd see, go to pick media, and I'd just see something with 2 tabs in it. Great. Looking at adaptation in the manifest file, it explains very nicely how you can overwrite existing elements. So you go in here, you write a manifest, and I'm saying my media picker modal, and I'm saying overwrite this existing media picker modal, and that's like the official documented way of doing it. I've got my little bit of JavaScript in there. So, that doesn't work. So it turns out, this is when the clouds start forming on my blue, sunny, dreamy skies. Turns out, however, a member of the community has been here before me, and they've shared their solution. For some system-wide modals, you'll have to unregister the existing one and add your own with the same name. So thanks, Richard Ockerby. But it's just really great because someone from the community has asked the question, shared a solution. That's now like there's a PR for doing some stuff, and that's all part of that. So that was like, so we're back to blue skies. It's great. So now I've done this. So now at the top, I'm unregistering the existing one, and I've just called mine alias the same existing one. I guess the problem will come is if 2 people try and do this on the 2 different packages, then you're going to have whichever one loads first is getting, or loads second is getting the modal. But now I have a manifest that's showing the modal, and I was at success. I go in, this is like, I didn't realize how old this is until you actually try and put it on screen, and it's like 20 pixels. But yeah, I'm like, success, I've got a modal showing, and it's got like nothing in it. I click the upload button, and now I am like seeing my pointless modal that doesn't let you upload media. So step 4, I've got to add some functionality to that. And so I've proven I can replace existing. That is like literally the minimum viable product, but it's not, well, minimum product, not even viable at this point. But can I extend or pull, can I extend the existing one and just like override little bits of it? No, you can't. Spoiler alert, you can't. So I'm basically pulling the code, and so I thought I'll just cut and paste the code Umbraco I've got, stick it in my, one of my tabs for now, kind of blend that together. And so I started copying the code on. But again, this turns out to be a little harder than I thought. I'm copying this code in, and there's a bunch of stuff referencing the Umbraco CMS backoffice package. But there's also a bunch of stuff in the Umbraco source which is referencing other JavaScript files that are in that package, but they're not exposed. So they haven't been exposed to the front end, so you can't. So you swap them out for Umbraco CMS backoffice /media. They're not in there. So then you're like, okay, the clouds are back. So it was very much highs and lows. So I ended up copying like the media tree repository, which is one of the things I really needed. I copied the whole of that, all the source code and all its dependencies into my package. Now I'm thinking, this is surely the most terrible way of doing this. Now I have a copy of like a media tree repository, which is a core library in my source code. So I spoke to Jakob on Slack, and I was like, is this? And he's like, no, I think we've forgotten to put that in. So this will be fixed, I think. But also when I'm in there, I'll notice like some things are compiling, but when I come to run it, they're showing console log errors and things, and it's not quite working. So I end up commenting out a bunch of stuff about context at the beginning. And I'm like, I'm still not sure what they're there for, but I'm pretty sure they're important. And I shouldn't be commenting out, but it got my thing working. And then I wanted to try and refine the UI. I wanted to make it match what I was trying to do. So first off, I had my little media tree underneath when I said save in media library for reuse. So I wanted to display a media tree with just folders to pick where I'm saving my media. And I so currently the media tree you can just render in there, really easy to stick a media tree in. But if you want to do a media tree which is customized in any way, suddenly you're into writing your own trees. And then I was like, well, let's have a look at the content delivery API and see how you would do this. And all of the endpoints I'm looking at, I'm going, I can't see how you'd filter. And I was a little bit of hope at one point, because in the tree children, it's got this little data type ID, and I thought I could pass in my folders data type. That doesn't do it. That doesn't do what you expect. But I don't know how you find out what that is doing, because there's no real explanation. It's sort of, so I'm kind of like, okay. So what I'm going to do is I was saying the current delivery API is great, but it's doing exactly what the back office needs, I think. And there's no which makes complete sense, but there's no options to kind of override or extend, or some filters that you might want in there, and all this sort of stuff that you might for future people to reuse or add to. There's nothing really in there that's going to give you sort of a point, or I couldn't find it anyway, a point to build on top what's there. Even overriding it's quite difficult, because it's like the existing APIs are there's 4 subclasses deep before you get to the code that's actually going and getting stuff and things. So it's kind of quite hard to figure out. I can't just override the top level class, because it's so deep nested in there that you can't. So at this point, I thought, what I'll do is I'll write my own API and build it on top. And I started that. You see how deep it is, and I think, okay, I've got 5 days. Let's not get focused on the media folders thing. It's kind of looking all right, so let's just come back. So, back to my dream. And at this point, I was going to add the little folder previews thing so you can see what's inside folders in the media picker. And I thought, for this, I'll have to develop my own little custom lit element. And there's currently a lit element called imaging thumbnail, which is just shows a thumbnail. And I thought, where that's used, what I want is if there's no children, use that one. If there is children, use my one. And I wanted it to load in those little things lazy. I don't want to have to wait for it to build up all that before it renders it to the front end. I want to show something and then be loading in the little previews afterwards. So that's what. So I modified it to load the children and then render each of the children as a thumbnail. So I'm using that same thumbnail one, but just it had nice options to choose the size of it, so I'm using that. The only downside of this I could see is it's making one additional request for every folder in your media library, which if you have a lot, might be a lot of requests, but it's all doing it lazy, so I'm going to live with that. And so the code for loading children looks a bit like this. So this is how you would load children. I'm using this media tree repository, which I've had to copy in, and I can request tree items, and I can sort of give it the parent, and it'll skip and take, and it will give me the bunch, and I put a little element together. And this element then had a render, which is showing the thumbnail, which shows thumbnails, which is render thumbnails. So at the top here, we got a little render, and that's when it's not loading, it shows the thumbnails. When it is loading, it shows a little loader. And again, I robbed this from the thumbnail ones. This is coming from a lot of this from Umbraco source. And then for the thumbnails, it loops through each one and shows a little thumbnail, which is using that imaging thumbnail, and there's a very small height and width. And then this little connected callback is doing the sort of lazy loading of all this stuff. So it does a kind of, if you set it to lazy mode, you could set it to non-lazy mode as well. I robbed that from the thumbnail. So this is all. And this is kind of big learning for me. It took a while to sort of figure out exactly what it's doing and which bits are needed. And then in the bit of the media picker, which I basically copied all the media picker code in at this point, and the bit of the media picker, I'm then taking the bit that shows each little card, and I've then saying, if it has children, use my media picker with folders, otherwise just use the normal thumbnails thing. So if it's an image, it shows a thumbnail. If it's a folder or has children, is really what it is actually, then it's showing the little thumbnails. And this is when the clouds are back. So actually, I was doing this, and it was all looking good, and I could see it making requests, and I could see it trying to get children. But suddenly, for no reason I could figure out, media service was just not passing any query parameters. So you see, back here, I was sort of saying, use this parent, and then skip and take. And it just wasn't passing these query things over. And I'm like, okay. So I start digging around, and I'm looking through the existing source. I'm copying stuff over from existing code and things. I tried copying the media repository again. I tried doing other stuff. I tried making it. Turns out, I got really desperate. Like about 3 hours beforehand, Umbraco 16 was released. So I was like, I'm just going to upgrade everything and try again. I upgrade everything, suddenly it starts working. Whee. I've still no idea what happened there, but and I could see other components were working, but mine wasn't. And but even when I rolled it back to the previous one, I just put the normal media picker in, suddenly that stopped working. So I'll never know. But I'm happy, I'm a success. So at this point, I have a very rough and ready media picker modal. So let's see what that looks like. I'm going to try the video. If the video doesn't work, I'll actually do it in real. So I've got a little, let's go back to the beginning. No, YouTube, stop. Okay. Stop showing me extra thumbnails. I don't want more videos. Thank you. Yeah, close. All right. Okay, so this is the normal media picker. This is just a media, this is really awful quality. This is just a normal media picker. There's nothing special. This is just, added a media picker to the content node. And so I click that media picker. And now this is launching my modal. So I've got a big upload box, which is looks pretty much like my original sort of sketch design. I can click this little, click Steve. I can upload an image, and I can click and open this folder. This is where I was trying to get to showing just the folders, because I don't want to attach it underneath another media item. That would be weird. So I wanted just folders in there, but it's kind of, I'll come back to that. And there you go, it's picked an actual media item, and it worked. And then I go with that, and I'll go into the media library. And this is now showing my little thumbnails. It's quite cute. This is actual potato quality. And we've got another folder here with nothing in it. So it's just a folder. It just uses the usual one. And we got a working media picker. And then I started thinking about, actually on the media picker, we're going to need a find by content as well. So I also added a find by content tab and just put a content tree in there, but it doesn't really hook up to anything at the minute. So this is a working media picker in Umbraco, and I've managed to achieve my goal. But I should watch a video. No. So I've kind of achieved my goal, but I had planned in those 5 days, and this is the end of 5 days and maybe some evenings as well. And maybe some of this conference, and a bit of the MVP summit. But anyway, so yes, can it be done? Yes, I think we can do it. But with the current state of things, it might take you longer than you expect. And maybe even just getting a proof of concept running in a week was ambitious. I thought, in the Angular days, I think I could have comfortably done something more substantial. And maybe, and you will have to be willing to make some compromises, duplicate code from Umbraco and put it in yours, and spend a fair bit of time being frustrated. Now, this is not the upbeat talk I was hoping for. But so my experience, I think, was mostly one of frustration. I had some highs. I was really happy when it got working. I think the harder it is to get working, the more happy you are when it does. But there was quite a lot of lows in this. It was quite a lot of head banging, quite a lot of head in hands on my desk. But I'm pretty pleased with what I have. I've sort of seen the concept. I know it's possible. But I expect it to be much further along. And I'm sure, some of this, people will come up to me and say, well, you could have done this, Steve. And I'm sure it's probably down to my experience. But I was reading the docs, and I'm reading the articles, and I'm reading things, and I'm just thinking there's definitely bits missing that would make this just much easier to do. I think we were in the MVP summit, and one of the Umbraco developers said, well, have you found the hidden examples folder? I'm like, why is it hidden? Let's make it public. So there is an examples folder tucked away inside the Umbraco UI stuff, but I have yet to find it. But that might have helped. But I think I'm quite an experienced developer who can pick up stuff fairly quickly. And I've been working with Umbraco for a long time. not going to say how long. And this would be, and also I have contacts. I was messaging Jakob in the MVP channel. I'm messaging people I know, people working on the UI and stuff. I know people working on the back office. So I'm able to get in touch with people and say, oh, can you point me in the right direction? Now, if I come along and I'm a new Umbraco developer and I've got this idea and I've been doing it 6 months or a year, I don't have that connections. They haven't been to Codegarden. They haven't been to Umbraco Spark, which is in Bristol every year. They haven't been to Umbraco Spark. They haven't been to like UK Fest. So they are going to be much more struggling with this than I am, especially if you come in and they think, oh, maybe I'll try a different product or a different system. So what can we do? Well, I was thinking, let's reduce the learning curve. Now, Umbraco's focus up until now has been, as far as I can see, has been getting the feature parity of V30 in the UI, get it all working, get it running. Let's just kind of get the new office into a fit state for essentially V17, really. And that means that they've been creating technical debt like an Icelandic bank during a subprime mortgage crisis. It's like the documentation is lagging massively behind. It's like there is stuff, every document you go into says this is a work in progress, and you're like, okay, but it has been like 3 versions since. And can we get we need to get the back office developer experience, or the developer experience of the back office in a better place. So I'm encouraging, please try stuff, and when struggling, ask questions, because those questions actually cause people to explain how to do that, and then we have a record of how you would do that. You might blog post if you figure out something to do. Come and do talks at Codegarden or something. Share examples as well, particularly examples are great, but also if you're struggling with stuff, raise issues, create PRs. If you think something's not right, create a PR. Even if it's a draft PR and you say, I'm trying to, I want to do this, I think this is wrong, it starts the conversation. And if you're able, and I found this quite intimidating, so I'm coming in, I think I'm going to write some documentation for this and make it clear, but I'm like, am I the best person to be writing documentation? Because I don't really 100% understand everything I'm working on right this minute, because it's taken me longer than I thought. So am I going to be explaining it clear? But maybe if I come in and write PRs for the documentation, someone will go, well, that's good, but you can do it this way or that way. And we will learn, and we'll be able to create that documentation together. So as a result of this talk, I've already raised 3 issues. I've got a whole list more to create. Stuff like making a media tree repository and media. I think I was chatting to Jacob and I said, media tree repository, I can't see it. And he's like, well, you could use this other repository. And then 2 minutes later, he's like, oh yeah, that's not exposed either. And so I'm like, okay, let me create some issues for that. And so I've already got 3 issues in, but there's more coming. And I've got a few PRs in mind from this, maybe the hackathon tomorrow. And also, I'm looking for collaborators. So I quite like the idea of doing this new media section. And I would love, if a bunch of people, maybe more experienced than me, or maybe they're up for learning something new, come along and say, come on, Steve, I would love to join in, and let's make a new media section. Maybe you don't agree with my choices on the UI, but that's great to have a chat with as well. I mean, this is my first stab, and I'm just figuring out, let's get a prototype going, and maybe we can all have a look and see. Yeah, so if you would like to help, come and speak to me or get in touch after Codegarden, during Codegarden, I'm around. Thank you very much.